The Bao VTuber situation is worse than you think. Well, we're gonna look at this. Yeah, if you haven't noticed yet, I think Bao has officially stopped being a VTuber. Anyway, we're gonna look at this. This is a ref video. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see what's going on. This will be interesting. This will be very interesting because, well, yeah, the harsh reality is that Yoshi is in reality just an e-girl. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, and they're actually just a huge tourist, or rather, they just love using your hobby to get a large following, so they can start selling their stuff. I wonder how long it takes until the OF comes, the real IRL OF. Anyway.
Hey, what's up guys, Riff here. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the recent Bao situation, and I have made countless videos for many years about various drama-related content, and I know a controversial topic when I see one, and that's exactly what we're covering in this video. So not only are we talking about how people are right now criticizing Bao, but also there is a general discussion going on once again about what it means to be a VTuber. When do you post too much real-life content? When it comes to that stuff, there's really only three camps. There's one camp that is very purist. They don't want to see any IRL content from a VTuber. They say this is a virtual YouTuber. That's all I want to see. Then there's another camp that doesn't care, right? They don't care how much real-life content you post. It doesn't bother them at all. Then there's a third camp, which personally I fall into, that is a little bit in the middle somewhere, right? Where a little bit of IRL content doesn't really...
I'm not on the purist side, but I certainly do care because, well, if a hobby or a culture has rules, usually you follow that. If you don't do that, then usually the hobby is no longer what it was supposed to be. I get the pure side because that's how most of Japan has treated it, right? That's where VTuber comes from. I'd say as long as there is no person visible, like, right? If you're like out somewhere and you take a photo in a zoo and you take a fucking photo of a real life hippo, I'm not gonna fucking care. I think as long as you don't show body, it should be fine, in my opinion. To post some IRL stuff, that's totally chill, in my opinion.
bother them, but when it gets to a point where it's the primary source of your content, it feels a bit weird to keep calling yourself a VTuber. And that's exactly what's happening with Bao, because for months, all she's been posting is real-life content with no mention of VTubing whatsoever, while at the time, still labeling herself as a VTuber. And that has been the big discussion over the past couple of days. And given the very poor reputation Bao has with the VTubing scene and among VTuber fans right now for reasons I'll get into in just a second, she has become a lightning rod for this conversation where many people believe that she essentially coasted off of VTubing to build an audience and then tried to transfer that over to real-life content where she's trying to essentially build a career in the normie face cam scene. And, well, people are...
The slow descent into the LA streamer scene. We're gonna see it. We're gonna see it, guys.
Definitely very up in arms over what's happening right now. And you have to understand with Bao, she is very controversial among VTuber fans right now. And that has to do with controversy.
For one, she made misandrist posts. She acted like a victim during the Cinder thing when it very clearly people have started pointing out the holes in there and how Nanoless lied, right? And nobody really talked about it, pointed it out, so far so on. You get it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
She has faced over the last year and a half or so, and I'm going to run through them very quickly to give you some backdrop here. Number one, a lot of people viewed her as a mean girl, and that her involvement with the whole Cinder drama was very sloppy, and also she was backing a lot of people who have been outed as hypocrites or liars in that situation. But I covered this right here, where she was making many comments people viewed as the product of misandry, a hatred of men, where she said if you're an up-and-coming female content creator with a small audience and a much larger successful male content creator approaches you out of nowhere and showers you with attention on stream, in DMs, etc., don't walk, run. And of course, likes may be private, but thanks to useful idiots like this, their reaction to the situation was essentially revealing some of Bao's thoughts, where she liked a comment.
The funny thing is, Yuka was actually kind of fun, and then she entered her whole arc, and that's what we are now. So we're very sad. If I got a nickel for every single time a cute VTuber or a safe for work VTuber started doing adult content, I'd have like 20 nickels. That is a ton. That is a ton. That makes you question things if most of these aren't just e-girls. A V-thought, as I like to label it.
Responding to her post, saying men that are crying about this are the same men that cry about us, saying we'd choose the bear. And in case you're not terminally online, here's the context of that debate. A lot of people...
And yet the bear would choose us. The bear. Yes, the bear would choose us.
People are being asked the hypothetical. If you're a woman alone in the woods, who would you rather spend your time with? Would you spend it with a bear or a man? And a lot of people, mainly feminists, were saying they'd rather spend their time with a bear because at least the bear would just eat you and not do anything beyond that, which is absolutely insane. And the fact that she is siding with that sort of rhetoric was really off-putting to a lot of people. But of course, there was more to it. Facing the backlash, Bao would then mock all of her male fans, which of course rubbed people the wrong way even more.
I had a lot of strong...
Please add it. Please add the nuh-uh. It's called engagement farming. Please throw it in there. Please, I beg of you. Please throw it in there. I would just love to see it. Please throw it in there.
feelings about this. And to the people that are trying to dilute what I'm saying to fit their own, like, stupid-ass anti-woman, I fucking hate you, you're misandrous, I don't care, bro. I don't care, bro. Go fix your receding hairline. You ever heard of minoxidil? Yeah, try that, alright? Don't care. Wrap it up. Okay. Hey, man, you're...
It's kind of funny, considering that she now has face revealed. And people have been simping over her. Yet she's really not all that. She's really not all that. I said what I said.
You're outing yourself, okay? I didn't say anything. You did it yourself.
So as you can see from that clip, there was an attempt to gaslight her viewers into what the actual context of the backlash was, and she would continue that on social media, where one user said, just woke up, what the F is going on, because this was a huge set of drama involving Bao. And then Bao said, I said, if Harvey Weinstein invites you to a party, don't go, and it ruffled some feathers. And I even pointed out in the replies, that's not what you said. You did not say, if you're encountering a potentially predatory individual, run away. No, she said all successful male content creators, and that rubbed people a very wrong way. Within that same week, she got into another set of drama involving the art platform Skeb, where she made this now deleted tweet basically saying that because of the platform's function, a lot of the art she was commissioning was being revealed and publicly shown before she had intended, which is not true, right?
It's also like, if I remember correctly, on Skeb, the artist owns the artwork. Anyway,
that's something she could have avoided, and she deleted this tweet before a successful note was applied to it. And Skeb itself came out and clarified at the time that during the process of commissioning art, there's 4 separate opportunities to make it clear that you don't want things revealed early. But she didn't take those opportunities and was misrepresenting what the platform functions as. Then, in response to that backlash, she essentially said she's not being canceled she's engagement farming.
Nuh-uh. It's called engagement farming.
Canceled 4 times in a month, canceled 4 times in a month. Nuh-uh, guys. It's not being called canceled. It's called engagement farming. Thank you very much. Here we go again. Come on. You can't be for real. Guys, I'm so fucking dead ass. Who's actually going?
Yeah, of course, that clip rubbed people the wrong way yet again. It seems like she's kind of thumbing her nose at anyone who's upset with some of her recent comments. It looks very narcissistic and entitled. Not a good look. And
I'd say it's called being a retard, but what do I know?
another controversy that she was involved with was the Psychono situation, where she was reposting various tweets like that of Himomo.
That was such a fever dream. Yeah, the dude is a piece of shit, but the women trying to expose him are just that much. Also, just it's just as retarded. Imagine labeling somebody a pred that isn't one. Imagine being mad that you didn't get to be the #1 woman, that you got played, because that's what it all is. This whole thing was exposed because they felt like, right, they were led on, and it's like kind of funny, right? They all went ham on him, went like, oh, the poor girlfriend, she was never involved into anything. Yeah, again, it's very funny. The reason why Saikuno got away with it is because these chicks were too stupid. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. This was a fever dream. This was such a fever dream that even Muujin, right, who made a video about it, got tanked his own reputation for a bunch of e-girls online. It's very funny. It's very, very funny. Right? It's very, very funny. And then he made some weird raise comments towards Powder. Anyway,
in her Google Doc, where she labeled Psychono not only as a serial cheater, which he was, but also as a dangerous predator, which he was not. That aspect of this Google Doc and the whole expose with Muujin was completely debunked, but Bao reposted that among other tweets, including ones that are now deleted, using that dangerous predator label, and this repost is still live on her account to this day. Like, she's never gone back and thought, sharing a post labeling someone as a predator maliciously with no proof, maybe I shouldn't support that, but nope, it's still up to this day. But that's just a snapshot of everything going on with her over the last year and a half or so. So you have to understand, with that backdrop, her sort of PR, her reputation among VTuber fans right now is abysmal, okay? She was someone who was very well respected for a lot of years, but also people started to turn away when she leaned way more into explicit, not safe for work content, where she is selling that sort of stuff on the usual.
Mind you, it's very much fetish content. Like, I won't bark, but she does. She does bark.
Websites, but that's the backdrop. And for someone who's always posted some real life content, she at least used to wear a mask. It was more of a special event, but nowadays, I mean, she's just straight up face posting, right? Like, I'm not sharing anything that's hidden. She is doing this on her own volition, and the response to this is diabolical. But before we get into some of the replies, she's entitled to do this, right? A content creator can do whatever they want, right? You can make a right turn with your content.
It's just not fun if it looks like grifting, but whatever. Anyway.
However you see fit. Personally speaking, I have made some very big changes over the years to my content. I used to be a meme channel, and then I turned to commentary, nuking my entire channel and the entire library many years ago to shift into commentary because that's what I wanted to do. But you're allowed to do that, but also people are allowed to be upset about it. And yeah, people are not really feeling this sort of stuff from Bao. You can see this is just the first replies that show up. Me looking for the VTuber that this account is supposed to be. Sell your model at this point. You don't deserve to be considered a VTuber anymore. Me looking for the VTuber activity. Bao, please make a separate account for this IRL stuff. Call it Bao the Human with a handle Bao IRL or something. Stay in character. Imagine getting looks mogged by your biggest op, which of course we're getting into subjective stuff, and a lot of people are obviously being very
That name is outrageous. Anyway, true, true.
aggressive in the replies. I'm Weenie Hut Jr., I guess I'm soft. I don't think you have to really get into the personal insults. I think you can focus on the actual words she has said, and also you can raise very validly the criticism that she is, at this point, still labeling herself as a VTuber, when in reality, for months, she's done nothing close to VTuber related activities. In fact, this post went viral. It's a screen recording of her account, her media tab, where it's nothing but IRL content. 90+% is IRL content, and it seems like that is the focus she is going for. But I guess she listened to the backlash, where she then would drop the VTuber label from her profile. It's still in her tag on Twitter, her actual @, but I think changing that is a little more complicated because it would mess up your links on social media and other platforms. But yeah, she did listen, she heard something, and she dropped the tag. So it seems like that is the route she is going. She wants to go after this IRL content. And at the end of the day, whether you're in the camp 1, 2, or 3 with the whole VTuber and IRL,
See, she can do it. Not really saying she can't do it, but people can certainly be upset and eventually like not continue watching, right? That's fine, right? They can do that, and they have every right to do that. I see no issue with that.
conversation, I think she is kind of the case study of someone who got a huge amount of notoriety posting VTuber related content, and slowly over the past year or two has primarily posted real life content and now has completely shifted away. And if fans are upset about that, I think that's really valid, right? Again, it's her choice. She is allowed to do this, but people are allowed to not like it and to call her a hypocrite for still calling herself a VTuber, but now she has dropped the label entirely. Now, of course, there's also another narrative, and I want to talk about this, where some people on Twitter are calling her a schmo. Okay, I can't say certain words on YouTube. And people are like, how dare you? That's so awful. Just being blunt, okay, she has been selling adult content for a very long time. Okay, like it's been over a year or two at this point. In fact, she has a second account called Hojo-sama, where she's selling explicit, not safe for work content.
Yeah, that's why right? It's like, now you're calling her that. Now you're a little late. After that, you're calling her that. She's been for a long time. So like, I don't see what makes this occasion so special. She's been for a while now. So like, it's like whatever, right? That's like whatever. I've been calling her that for a while anyway.
So I think that whole narrative of white knighting her as some like pure innocent person is ridiculous, right? Like she even calls herself these sorts of terms. But I also think there's a greater conversation about how she's the focus of this debate when there's other very well respected VTubers who also post a ton of IRL content but don't get the same attention. I think that's the result of Bao being such a lightning rod right now, where she is very negatively perceived by many VTuber fans. If you're not a fan of Bao, you probably don't have the
Yeah, luckily, right? I have that issue with the other VTubers just as much, right? That issue just stays, right? I have that problem just as much here. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it's really just, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the fact that people keep doing this. I'm just not a fan. It's like, how do you put it? Would you be okay, for example, if I don't know, you were playing Warcraft, but all of a sudden, right, the creators, the people who own Warcraft, would more and more focus on specifically would more suddenly all of a sudden focus on, what do I know, on a female audience, right? Which they have, right? But let's say they do that. Would you be happy with that if you wear a Warcraft, like not Warcraft, Warhammer? I'm stupid. Anyway, yeah, I'm retarded. I meant Warhammer, right? If they move from like mostly male space marines, right, and a mostly male audience to more so a targeting a female audience, would you, as a Warcraft, Warcraft, bro, I'm so stupid, Warhammer fan, would you be happy about it? Probably not. You probably feel alienated, and that's what's happening to the VTuber, right? To the VTuber fans that are here for BAO because for the VTuber content, right? They feel alienated because they want VTube, so they subscribe for VTubing, and they're not getting VTubing. Just like you subscribe for a male-centered hobby, not a female-centered hobby. It's just a switch up. It's weird. I don't know. People wouldn't like it. Anyway, you get what I mean. You get what I mean. You get what I mean. I think. Yeah, I'm stupid. Never mind.
Best view of her right now as a VTuber fan, but I want to transition over to a clip that's gotten a lot of attention. It's from the VTuber Midas, and they talked
By the way, Midas is cool. I like her.
about this whole VTuber versus IRL debate, and I think they raised some really good points in this clip. And to be very clear here, they're not directly naming anyone, not BAO or anyone, but talking generally about their experience and how people have the right to be a little bit upset that their favorite VTuber completely departed away from VTuber related activities and is posting nothing but real life content.
So what I mean by that is that there were a lot of VTubers this year, medium, small, large, that were almost bragging about how little actual VTubing they do and how excited they are to start doing more flesh tubing on their VTubing stuff. And that really pissed me off. Like, I'm no Puritan, but something about this offkai forced me to really re-examine what it means to be a content creator in this space. And I think I've developed more sense of puritanicalism. As well, I did my best, but I have a story I think I want to tell you guys that kind of broke my heart a little bit. I mean, I've talked it over with...
See, the issue is, right, that if you change how a hobby functions, right, eventually it is not the same hobby, right? That's a reality. We can observe this with anime, for example. We can literally observe this with anime. The moment anime became mainstream, shit started going downhill, right? The moment it happened, tourists were flooding the space, right? And you'd be harassed for things that 10 years ago, right, you would have not been harassed for because normies wouldn't have entered, right? And I feel the same thing is happening here. The more IRL content happens in the space, the less it is the hobby that we got to know in like 2016, 17, 18, maybe up to 2020 even, right? But even there we start a switch. My theory is that the people, so here's a hot take, the women that were not able to make it as an IRL creator, a lot of those, right? A lot of those e-girls, honestly, a lot of OnlyFans girls even, right? That were not able to make it as a normal female streamer, picked VTubing. Because the look ceiling is not there. It does not exist, right? And once you have a large audience, you can, utilize that later on, right? From that's how I see it. Now, this might be a hot take. This might be a burning hot take, right? But there is a solid chance that has been the case. It could also be that a lot of the women that did become VTubers, right, realized how easy it is to grow. Like, not how easy. It's not super duper easy, but initially it was decently easy realized that you can get a decent following doing that, so they joined in. It's like the same issue with you have VTubers that don't like anime, and it's like questionable, well, because well, VTubing, by what you can tell, right, is an extension, like an extension of anime culture, right? That's why we're all looking at anime boys. Yeah, sure. Anime boys and anime girls, right? That's why we look like that. So like, it kind of makes sense, right? It kind of makes sense. Anyway, it. I don't know. I'm just questioning where this is all heading.
The affiliated parties, but it's another reason why
I was
don't want to go
invited
to Off anymore.
BTW.
I don't think being upset at seeing their VTubers in the flesh is something you should worry about. People deserve to be able to live their lives. That isn't what this is about. This is about people talk. What I'm upset about isn't that people want to live their lives and that people want to make content. It's the erosion of this very specific kind of type of content creation. You can flesh tube and you can do a damn good job of it and have an audience that's there for
MX
it and
robs us of
excited.
another Dino suit cameo.
But
See, let's say you are a cooking channel, right? You are a cooking channel. You cook. That is your content, right? You're a cooking YouTuber, right? A cooktuber, whatever, right? And it is a space, right? It's a specific type of content, right? All of a sudden, you switch up. You start drawing. You start doing painting, right? You start doing painting. So now the audience who built for cooking is upset that you start now put like 80% of your content is now drawing. They would be rightfully so upset, right? And now, which is very likely going to continue, right? Bao is going to continue calling herself a VTuber. That's going to happen, no matter what, right? I'm assuming that's going to happen. But she won't post that much VTubing content. Essentially benefiting of something that she's not. It's basically the cooking VTuber starting painting, starting posting almost mostly art content, and still calling himself a cooking YouTuber. You get what I'm saying, right? You get what I'm saying. Not only is that changing up the space, right? Or what it means, right, to be a cooking YouTuber. It also alienates your fan base because that's not what they're here for. And you can say what you want, right? The harsh reality is that the community you build, you're stuck with. I can imagine that if I could, right? I'm a reaction VTuber, right? I stream games also mostly. Now imagine if I stopped that in the future. I can probably tell that a bunch of people will probably be very upset with that. It's really that simple.
once you do that one too many times, you do genuinely like muddy like the definition of what it is to VTube. To VTube is to have the character, right? And too much obfuscation of that just, I personally don't like that. I think that it also is a little insulting to your audience. Even the ones that really like the flesh tubing content. They came for one thing, and if you're subverting expectation too often, not even as a one-off gimmick, but just you shouldn't really be shocked when people get upset. Right? Like, if you're not giving people what they came for and they get upset by it, it is stupid to play dumb and act shocked that people are confused, right? And that's very different from, oh, well, you know, people should do whatever they want. If you're going to call yourself a VTuber,
You better be a VTuber. Can't call yourself a cooking YouTuber if you started doing art.
it's fine. But if you don't behave like a VTuber, audiences are going to notice and they're going to call you out on it.
So I think she raises some really good points in that clip. I think the whole VTuber and IRL debate is a very sloppy one where people are pretty much entrenched in their own beliefs. They have a viewpoint, one of those three camps I mentioned earlier, and they're probably not going to change, but she is absolutely right. People have the right to post whatever they want.
Like I said, I'm in the camp of that you should your content should mostly just be VTubing, and I think you shouldn't show your face. Right. If you post like here and there like a picture of like you going on a walk, like I'm not, who am I to say that's wrong, that's terrible, that's bad? Like I'm not gonna really care all that much, right? It's fine. It's not that deep, right? It is okay, right? But the moment you start like posting your face, you start doing mostly IRL content, yeah, I'm revoking your VTuber license.
As a VTuber, but fans have the right to have an issue with it when you're still labeling yourself as a VTuber while posting primarily IRL content. It seems to upset the spirits of what VTubing is supposed to be all about. On top of that, she mentions Offkai, which is probably a great or the greatest example of what's going on here, where there's not only an intense focus on adult content in the scene, but also there is this very weird, almost manipulation tactic going on with some VTubers where they seem to get off to the fact that they're essentially luring in people with VTuber models and they're getting them to become fans, and then all they do after that point is post real life photos and videos.
Corn. That is another issue nobody talks about. The space has already been eroded by YouTubers, or as V-thoughts, as I call them. And yeah, people are like, oh yeah, but they're still part of the space, right? Project Melody she's one of us. No, she's not. She essentially opened the door. She opened the box of Pandora, and the e-girls realized that they can use that as an opportunity to come in. Yes, I'm gonna say it the way it is. I think Project Melody did insane damage to the space. Moving on. You can disagree with that, that's fine, but that's my opinion. Because it opened the door for much worse things. It's that simple.
In fact, with Offkai, not only did we have the 18 plus booth at a 13 plus convention, that's a whole nother conversation, but also most of them were just posting themselves. They weren't even using their VTuber models to do that booth in that set of content. It was just IRL posting, which if you're a even slightly purist VTuber fan, something feels a bit weird about that. You go to a VTuber convention and there's a heavy focus on 18 plus content, and that 18 plus content has nothing to do with VTubing. These people label themselves as VTubers, but they don't do anything related to VTubing. And I think this is a great clip. You can watch the full thing if you want for yourself, but I get what she's saying. It feels a bit deceptive to call yourself a VTuber and post nothing but real life content while holding on to that masquerade that you're a VTuber. It's very strange and I think predatory in many senses. But going back to Bao, she wasn't mentioned directly by that previous VTuber, but it seems like that conversation is very applicable to what she's doing. A lot of people think that she essentially used VTubing to build a very large audience to then transition that over into what she actually wanted, which was not only more not safe for work content, but also real life content among the sort of normie scene in the Twitch or whatever streaming scene. And, well, I don't think
maybe she wants to take maybe she wants to be like Twitch's brand ambassador, like fucking Extra Emily. Who knows? God damn it, man. I don't know. You could have not picked the worst person.
she really has the goodwill among VTuber fans to let that slide. Again, I think she's the lightning rod for this conversation, and she's going to be the focus. And unfortunately, she only has herself to blame for that, because she's been in too many controversies in the last year and a half to really slide by with this stuff. But yeah, this is a very controversial topic, and I am not the arbiter of truth on it, okay? So I am very interested to hear what you guys have to say about this in the comment section. Please let me know what you think, because this is a very subjective and messy debate. But what do you think about it? Please let me know. But for now,
that's pretty much the end of the video. Okay, so for me, right, I set my piece, right? I set my stuff right. To me, I do not really no longer consider a VTuber, right? I didn't really consider a VTuber with all the not safe for work content, right? That to begin with, and yeah, you could be like, but other like Japanese VTubers do this too, and I'm like, yeah, so that doesn't mean it's good. That wasn't as strong of a case 4, 5, 6 years ago either, right? That's not a good development. That's not like, oh, but Japanese do this as well. I'm like, yeah, that's bad too, right? This is like the off-Kai situation where like, but they see worse on the internet. They see worse in school. I'm like, yes, that doesn't justify it. That's also bad. Anyway, you get the idea. I don't know. I think she will eventually slowly start swapping completely to IRL content. I think that's what's going to happen, right? We're probably gonna see IRL and SFW content as well. I would not be surprised, at least. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please consider like, subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.